Footballers who play at the highest level are, by and large, gifted in multiple facets of the game which fall within a certain radius of their role on the pitch. And of course, there are some who even cross that imaginary boundary. However, due to our natural tendencies to box, label, and also be captivated by the more flashier and or frequently showcased attributes they possess, there are certain aspects of certain players which, as vital as they are, largely go unnoticed. So, in the name of acknowledging some of the attributes as well as cancel out the negativity from the previous video, here are 7 world-class players with 1 underrated quality. Let's roll on.
Number 7, CR7, dribbling. It's weird to think that there was actually a period in his career early on where people thought that all Ronaldo could do was dribble, but due to what is by my estimation a combination of recency bias as well as him constantly being compared to arguably the greatest dribbler of all time, there are people out there who actually think Ronaldo's a poor dribbler. Now, let's address this off the bat. Even at his absolute peak, he was never as good as Messi. In my opinion, not even close. Sorry kids. But if that's the benchmark for elite dribblers, bro, that would make for a very lonely club. Probably just Messi walking around doing kick-ups, while Maradona's in the corner sniffing just a shitload of cocaine. And while the modern day CR7's dribbling attempts being stifled by the fact that his legs just aren't as quick as his brain anymore doesn't help this dwindling reputation, like I was saying in the other video, let's not forget who this man was, please. Cause this was the same guy who was labelled as a show pony on his arrival at Manchester United. The same guy who used to twist people inside out on a regular basis starting as early as his teens. The same guy who became the best dribbler in the world before the emergence of Lionel Messi. The same guy who is arguably the greatest dribbler in Premier League history. Yes, even better than you, Mr. Pure Burgers. Is the same guy who, at his dribbling peak from 2006 to 2010, is in my opinion up there with the top 20 dribblers this game has ever seen. Never forget, he is that guy. Number 6, Didier Drogba, defending. While his goal scoring is also better than those with stat fetishes wish to admit, barely anyone talks about Didier Drogba's capabilities of defending from the front. I mean, given his size, the fact that he's capable of winning headers in both boxes is kind of a given. But there were also times where he was making crucial tackles and goal line clearances, to the point where, and I swear to God I am not making this up, I very distinctly remember reading on teletext, if you don't know what that is then I automatically hate you, that Jose Mourinho was actually contemplating using the big man as an emergency defender. You know, like he did with Samuel Eto'o years later. I wonder how he'd have fared. Number 5, Zinedine Zidane, aggression, majestic, graceful, poetry in motion, a ballerina on a football pitch. But also, over 6 feet tall, over 12 stone in mass, piercing eyes, donned a centre-back's jersey, was probably born with a fucking bald patch. This man was nasty. And while most younger viewers have only seen the headbutt on Materazzi, believe me, that wasn't the only time he'd lost his head on the pitch. Hell, that wasn't even the only time he'd used his head after losing his head on the pitch. And adding to what is basically what would happen if a Mangle was capable of WMD, Zizou was also never shy of putting in hard tackles and getting into both hard shoulder barges and shoving matches on the pitch. And in all fairness, this should tell you just how good of a player he was. I mean, the fact that his brilliance on a football pitch completely overshadowed the little stat of him accumulating more red cards over his career than Roy Keane should tell you all you need to know, really. And speaking of Roy Keane, number 4, Roy Keane, passing. You know, there's nothing wrong with admitting you've never seen someone play. There's also nothing wrong with admitting you've never gone back to see clips of watching someone play. Not everyone has the time to do so. But what does annoy me to my core though, is morons who've never watched someone play, never gone back and seen clips of someone playing, and still pretend to while presenting opinions they've seen on Twitter, or just assumptions they've gathered themselves. Roy Keane to the modern day football fan, ladies and gentlemen. Cause best believe, kids, those who've actually seen Roy Keane play know the truth to be different. Be it the energetic box-to-box midfielder in his early days, who was basically a Kante that scored goals, just imagine that for a second, or the sitting midfielder in the latter days who shielded the back four and, no joke, was one of the best short to mid-range passers around at the time. Because you see that 10 to 20 yard fizz into the forward players along the ground to break the lines, or the through ball out to the wingers to attack. There were very few, if any, as good as Roy Keane at doing that on his day. Not to mention his decision making when it came to passing was near on impeccable. But because he didn't hit the eye candy 70 yard switch very often, because well, he didn't need to, and he garnered a reputation as a hard man, which he still somewhat plays up to till this day, there are some who've genuinely forgotten just how good Roy Keane was. And then behind them there are some who haven't forgotten, nor do they remember, but f***ing talk anyway. Stop doing that, you baby. Number 3, Wayne Rooney, pace. Bro, he was f***ing rapid. And never mind no one talking about it nowadays. I mean, now it's understandable considering he looks like his cousin found him sleeping behind a bin, but picked him up and gave him an office job anyway because nepotism. Learn how the world works, kids. But even when he was playing, his pace wasn't really spoken about much. And bro, that is mad, cause at his quickest, he wasn't that far off CR7. Like bro, I've seen man dust off seriously quick ballers like Gael Clichy and Ashley Cole, and I'm pretty sure he's been clocked at one of the fastest top speeds in the world in more than one occasion throughout his career. But because he didn't have the quickest and most graceful of turns, and let's face it, most of us who watch football don't really pay that much close attention, and instead just scan the movements of a player and form an opinion. E.g. Rooney, big, hairy, angry, always in a fight, so that automatically must mean he was just one of them strong bulldog-like street footballers, right? Well, he was, but a fucking lightning one at that. Whereas if there's a player who's quick, not as filled out, and loves a flick and a trick, he's usually thought of as weak, despite that also not always being the case. Case in point. Number 2, Ronaldinho, strength. Okay, this is where I kinda expose myself as a hypocrite, cause genuinely, despite having watched Ronaldinho on a regular basis back in the day, the fact that he was a fucking unit completely went under my nose. I mean, come on. Can you blame me? Cause along with the fact that him not really looking very intimidating, his balling ability was so good, you usually forgot what sport you were watching, let alone what teams or what player. But man, go and look back. The guy was bouncing off real solid defenders at a time where the game was more physical. And to be fair, when you do put things together, you do realize that one of the reasons why he was able to make people look so stupid even at the highest level was because he was near on impossible to brush off the ball. That, combined with his more obvious attributes like pace, skills and vision, really makes you think what he could have been if he had the mindset to be the best. Honourable mention, Marcelo, defending. Well, here's another Brazilian baller who once again people assume to be solely just that. And once again, it's just idiots jumping on bandwagons and judging from compilations spewing out horseshit like he was apparently more attack-minded than Roberto Carlos. Christ, man. Either watch football or stop talking like you f***ing watch football. It's not that hard, you baby. Because if you indeed watched him play football week in, week out, mostly twice a friggin' week like I did, you would know that post 2014-ish and going into the 3P era, Marcelo's defensive game went on to reach another level. And in many of those Champions League nights, his defensive shifts were a key factor in Real seeing the finish line first. Besides, think about it this way, how bad of a defender can you really be when your left winger is Cristiano frigging Ronaldo? I mean, I know they have a special bond or whatever, but knowing his love for going forward is kind of a shame for him, because had he played on the other wing, he'd have been able to do that a lot more frequently, because it would have meant that he'd been protected by number 1, Angel Di Maria, stamina. In all honesty, pretty underrated as a full package, but boy could he go. You see, there was a period of time in the early to mid 2010s where Angel Di Maria was actually my favourite player, and while for most people his selling point was understandably his mazy dribbles, pinpoint crossing and brilliant passing, for me it was instead his ability to just keep f***ing running. I was brought up in England, could you tell? You see, when it came to attributes like work rate, usually it's the less technically gifted players who get the praise, and because Di Maria was a skillful Latin American who played in attacks that featured the likes of Messi and Ronaldo, people forget just how relentless this guy was. Seriously, just go back and watch any big game from that era which was played with super high intensity and all went into extra time. Any of the Clásicos, for example, any of the Madrid derbies like Copa Final 2011 or Copa Final 2014, UCL Final 2014, but the one I personally remember most was actually Argentina versus Switzerland in the round of 16 of the 2014 World Cup. A game so physically draining where even the likes of Messi were about to faint in the scorching and smouldering summer sunshine inside the Seleção Stadium situated in the state and city of Sao Paulo. This saliently selfless soul of the skinny and stellar serial sideman just refused to stop. And that's considering that he actually had a torrid game on the ball. Like, I'm pretty sure he actually lost the ball on almost 40 separate occasions that game. Yet, he did not sulk for long and was somehow running full speed even towards the end. And eventually, as he does so often on the big stage, playing a vital part in deciding the outcome. And this isn't regarding his conditioning, but speaking about that 2014 World Cup actually reminded me of something. You see, I honestly believe that had Di Maria played in the final, Argentina may have pulled off something special that year. Just think about that for a second, and then think back to the trophies they did win in recent years, and then think about that one more time. Either way, speculation aside, the facts are, in his prime, the guy was a machine. And that is that. Agree or disagree? Beats indifference. Once again, don't forget to like and share. Let me know if there are underrated traits from world-class players that didn't feature on my list. And of course, do subscribe. Till next time, you keep rolling.